Everyone, great to be back with another Digital with Akash course. And today we're going to be talking all about content marketing. And it's a very interesting course for those who really want to maximize what their content does, and especially in terms of conversion and how to drive sales, which is a very important attribute to kind of really bring out of your content today. But just before we go into the actual topic, we've completed now half of the course already. So we've done social media marketing, influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, and search engine optimization, aka SEO, which is now on my YouTube channel, and you can check the videos out if you haven't seen them already. And then next week we'll be talking about email marketing. Then we'll go a bit into PPC, paid search, and then we'll finish with a Google Analytics demonstration and overview. So as I said, the SEO is now live on YouTube, so do check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But today it's all about content marketing. So first, what is content marketing? Well, content marketing is a form of marketing focused on creating, publishing, and eventually converting the content for a targeted audience, predominantly online, with the real goal to build the reputation and the visibility of your brand through the content. So traditionally, most people would say that marketing is impossible without great content. And I would definitely agree. To get your messages across, to get your brand vision across, and even your products across or your services across, content is king. And it's pretty much whether it's on social media or wherever you put your content, you need to make sure that it really portrays your brand's DNA, or your own DNA if you are an influencer yourself. So, but other people would kind of combat that and say, yes, we understand great content is key, but great content does cost a fortune. Usually you got to go and get the best directors, the best photographers, the best studio, and it can be so expensive, especially for a new brand that's starting out. So today I kind of wanted to explain how you at home can create content with some tips and tricks and some tools that you can use and some applications that are free to use. So hopefully you'll get a lot of learnings there, but also how to leverage other content creators out there in the industry, not necessarily working with the biggest agencies out there. So although there's a whole section of content marketing that's definitely revolving around having, like for a brand like Dior, would be having the best commercial with the best director. Today, we're going to be going more from a realistic side for most businesses in terms of, I've got no money, I've got limited budgets, but I want to get the great content. And that's what today we're going to be focusing on. So I'll kind of give an example from my hair care brand with my sister called Fable and Mane. And we have done professional content, and I wouldn't say we've spent a fortune, but we've spent, a good amount of money to create images like such from different photographers and studios around the world, whether it was paper cutting, like the fourth image, or a very famous New York studio in the middle image. We have definitely started to create very engaging brand assets, but, it does cost money, and to do them on repeat and have an always on content strategy is very expensive. And we don't want to be spending money, especially during a time right now. So how can we optimize our spend, but also not sacrifice content quality, right? That's the main importance for today. So user-generated content, or even content that you create as a person, is sort of now the future. And we're seeing that in the quality that's improving through the user-generated content today. We no longer are seeing on the internet from consumers and also from mini nano influencers, content that is sort of not that great, not that edited. Now we're seeing content that can rival. And you can look here, and there's 5 images created by influencers with less than 10,000 followers that we've just gifted the products to. And they've created this beautiful content that, honestly, you can now compare the two, and you could say, I actually prefer the bottom line, right? Maybe the bottom line should be my brand asset, my main brand visual, or my campaign for the summer. So this is sort of hopefully an eye-opening experience to say, user-generated content can end up being the best content marketing for your brand today. So we'll go through three key pillars: creation, publishing, and converting. But let's first kick it off with creation, content creation. So I'm going to give you an example of now sort of me as an influencer. I create a lot of content for Fable and Mane, my brand, but I also create a lot of content for my own Instagram. And many, many people have told me, Akash, your content is like incredible. Do you have a photographer? And I'm like, no, most of it's just my iPhone, right? It's all about the apps I use, the editing I use, and the softwares I have. So today I want to basically share with you how I create my content and some tips and tricks for you at home, or whether you're a business or a small agency, to do this within basically a very small budget. So just in terms of my setup and what I have currently at home, I have for my shooting a Canon 80D that I have an 18-55mm lens that came with the camera. This is something you can buy secondhand on eBay or anywhere, and it's really not that expensive, and it's a really good investment to have as a DSLR goes. I'm a Canon person, I'm not a Nikon person, but many people prefer Nikon too. But I also got a 50mm lens, which I really recommend as everyone getting, because it really makes that beautiful close-up imagery shots. And I have a tripod. And I also got basic studio lighting. Like currently right now, if you see, I even have a light for my live streaming, because I look much better with flash on me. So this is where you can really leverage this kind of equipment, but it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. Like I bought mine from Amazon. It's pretty much breaking. Every time I touch it, it stops working, but it does the job at the end of the day. So I really recommend having, if you don't want the camera, at least get basic studio lighting. Is very important, because lighting can really affect the quality of your content drastically. And then also tech equipment, which I think is really, really important. I have an iPhone, and that's where, honestly, from my Instagram feed, around 98% of my content is just taken on my iPhone. And then I use the relevant apps to enhance the content and make it better. So for my YouTube now, which I'm launching, I've just filmed the first video. This I'm using my Canon, my DSLR, because I'm really going for the high quality content. But if you're a business at home, this is sort of the perfect equipment you need. You don't really need anything more in my mind. So when we're talking about the main apps to use, I really would highly recommend people to start learning how to use Photoshop if you don't know. Photoshop, I think for me, has been the biggest asset I've learned. And I've learned it all on my own, just kind of over time using YouTube tutorials and just playing around with the software. You can do so much with it, from obviously reformatting asset types, which are very important, where you work with retailers who want specific dimensions, banners, pixels, that you can do in Photoshop within 1 second. You also can edit photos really well, similar to Lightroom. I just do everything on Photoshop. It's a lot easier for me. But also you can do really more creative stuff like creating GIFs. So on Giphy, which is the stickers you have on Instagram, if you type in Fable and Main on Instagram, I created all those stickers of the Fable and Main logo moving, or the oil moving, all on Photoshop. You do it by creating a video timeline. If you guys are interested, we can definitely in the future arrange a Photoshop webinar / tutorial, and I can go through all my tips and tricks. Just from the interest of time today, it's definitely takes a lot longer than the current time we have, and we have a lot to discuss. But I also recommend, from video editing, especially if you're interested in going into YouTube or into creating video assets for your brand, Adobe Premiere Pro is a really strong solution. And why I've offered this and not Final Cut Pro is because it's easier just to get an Adobe kind of subscription and get all the apps with Illustrator included. So Premiere Pro and Photoshop is the only 2 apps I have on my laptop, and the only 2 things I use. When it comes to my mobile, I use 3 apps. And don't get me wrong, I know there's many, many, many apps out there. There's ViscoCam, there's people use Lightroom, there's a lot. I use Snapseed, and we'll go through a bit of a deep dive into that a bit later as the case study. Snapseed is a free app. It's created by Google. It's incredible. It does everything you need to do, but we'll talk about it a bit later. But Snapseed, if you don't have it, download it. If you're a business, if you are an influencer in the making, or you're just a person who just takes photo for themselves, download Snapseed. GIFs, if you want to make moving GIFs, this isn't a Giphy, this isn't like a sticker. This is more of like a moving image, or like, you know, like like taking loads of photos and then making a stop motion. ImagePlay, IMGPLAY, is my app to use. If you don't know that, again, it's free and definitely worth downloading. And when it comes to video editing, especially for IGTV, but also for other things, definitely recommend Splice. I edit all Fable and Main's IGTV videos, all our videos on this. It's a free app. I think it's created by GoPro, but again, it's really good. So these 3 apps are all free. Pretty much not any caveats. It's just, I don't know why they're free, but they're amazing. So definitely download them. And I'm seeing a lot of people definitely would be interested in a Photoshop workshop. So leave that with me. I will arrange in due course. But also I want to explain some other kind of, you know, if you don't want to like necessarily use Photoshop, etc. There are, for Instagram stories, Unfold is a very common, popular app that people use today. But actually, Canva, for those who don't know, is actually one of the best new tools for people who just don't want to learn Photoshop. It's too confusing and I don't want to pay a monthly fee for Photoshop. Go on Canva. Canva, you can do so much, pretty much all for free as well. There are some pro versions, but you can create Instagram story templates. You can create posters, logos. You can also resize, like as I was saying, like a lot of people need specific dimensions for things. So Canva allows you to easily resize images with your dimension requirements. But you also can create like YouTube thumbnails. There's so many things that they have pretty much ready to go. And it's like really helps you build that perfect kind of template. So Canva, definitely recommend. I know there's an app, but most people use it on the desktop. So definitely would highly recommend Canva. But now, if you were going a bit of a deep dive, this is actually a photo I edited of a friend of mine when she came over for lunch. She had this photo and she has an Instagram page, and I told her, look, you know, I can edit this photo. Don't delete this photo. This is something that we can do really easily. And she was like, but how can I save it? It's just so blue and it doesn't work. And within literally a minute and a half, I managed to edit it to this photo on the right with pretty much, just Snapseed, no payment, nothing, just 1 minute and a half of my time. So I'm really pretty good at editing now because I just do it. It's kind of like painting. It's like art. You just have to like have your own style and have your vision before you edit, and then you go. But obviously getting more used to the app, the more quicker you are. So I have a little demonstration. I just repeated the image, and I just screen recorded my phone just before this. So hopefully this will work and it will play. So basically here you have the app, and then you have, as you can see in the icons, you have a bunch of different tools to use. So grainy film, which is what I'm showing you right now, this is a really cool way to change a filter. So think of it like Lightroom. You have different filters, but for now we won't do grainy room. The first thing for me is maybe changing the brightness or contrast. So you have all these different things. Sorry, it's very quick, I know. But you just move it left and right to change accordingly your brightness or your contrast. So right now here you can see me, I'm playing a little bit with the brightness, but I first realized I want to change my white balance. So I'm trying to make this picture not blue anymore. So can I increase the tinge of pink to remove the blue? And that's what I'm doing now. And as you can see, I've gone now to a more gray background because I've added more pink in the background to make it the blue counteractive. Then I've gone to curves. Curves is a great tool to increase the brightness. You have this in Photoshop as well. So I've increased the brightness on curves. And now you have the brush tool. The brush tool is incredible for painting over, as I show here. You can increase the brightness or the darkness, and you literally use your finger. So it's like as if you're doing a painting. So right now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to brighten the areas around the photo. So as you can see, I'm going round and brightening the middle, all the background to make the white a bit more less, make the gray a bit more less gray and more white. But I'm also going to maybe change the saturation to not make it so orange. Now I'm going to go back to tuning image and I'm going to increase the contrast, increase the ambient. Here I'm just playing around. There's not really a rule book. I'm doing what feels right. But the more and more you play with this, the more this is going to make sense. You also have an incredible tool with the brush as well. You can, go back in and saturate and change accordingly the image. But you also have an incredible thing called expand. So here it fills in the blank space. So let's say you have an image that's not suited for your stories. You just have to increase it and it fills in the rest for you. So we don't want to do it for now, but that's just something I wanted to highlight. Now it's my favorite thing called healing. Healing basically removes things that you don't want in the photo. Like boom, it's gone. You might need to play around with it. Here I played around with it for about 20 seconds because I kept on going backwards and forwards. That's normal. So you will see me repeating it, deleting it, but you see it's not perfect. There's some dodginess going on. Now you see the cookie has been cut off. So you just have to keep on trying, keep on just going backwards and forwards. And eventually you'll see in a second, here I gave up and I was like, nope, let's go back to where it was. You'll see in like literally 5 seconds. And then I did one move and I was like, okay, that's fine. Boom, done. So now I move on to the next. This side was much quicker. As you can see, it's pretty much done. But there, I got rid of the creases. But you can do the same for your face if you've got a pimple, whatever. I'm not saying you should alter your face, but you could do this. And then I kind of now made the background a bit brighter. I wanted to kind of make the focus being of the cookies and not on anything else. And then I go back into the curve So, you're going backwards and forwards. Think of it like a painting. You just keep on editing, keep on moving, and then you can save. So again, sorry, it's very quick. I didn't expect it to be that quick, but hopefully that helps you realize. So my main things I like to use are tune image, curves, white balance, expand, brush, healing, and grainy film. Feel free to screenshot this. But the best advice I have is just play on Snapseed. As you can see, you can do so many things, from change the size of the image, change the colors of the image, take out things from the image, and it's pretty much everything you can do in Photoshop, but just on your phone. So Snapseed, definitely very effective. But if you're someone who doesn't have the time to create content, doesn't want to create content, then I would definitely recommend leveraging content creators. These are people potentially like myself, but there are many people out there on the internet, on the social media networks, that are willing to create content for you. Some will create content just in exchange for a gift. Some would require a small payment. Some would require a great payment. But the point is there are many out there that could be suitable for your brand. So let's say you're a beauty person. Try to find those accounts with 1 to 10,000 followers that create beautiful beauty photos, to be maybe creating content for you each month, maybe 3 photos a month or 4 photos a month, to really start populating your social media feed posts. Because as you can see, sometimes they can create way better content than we can ever create, without the need to go to a studio or rent a model or pay a fortune to an agency. And the also benefit thing is they usually also post the content on their feed as well. So you also get some extra awareness. I did a whole kind of breakdown on kind of content creators and community in my last webinar on influence marketing. So do check it out if you want to know a bit more about these people. But definitely content creators are very important for content marketing today. But now we kind of discussed a lot about content. You've got a lot of things to go on, whether it's using the free apps online, using content creators, or starting to learn about the more kind of advanced apps like Photoshop and Premiere Pro to take the content to the even next level. But now it's all about publishing and posting. So for me, there are 3 top tips to publish successfully today in terms of your content marketing strategy. There's scheduling apps or kind of planning apps. There's listening to the data, and there's being topical. So that might mean a lot of nothing to you right now, but we'll go through each topic and hopefully that will make a lot more sense. So the first is scheduling apps. So here are some examples of scheduling apps that I would recommend, and I advise you all to just research them or download them and see if it's suitable for you. So Planoly, which is a perfect app for kind of an individual, an influencer, or a small business, enables you to plan the feed and then schedule the post. Very simple. Hootsuite, a little bit more advanced. You can do multiple things. You can also get a lot more data and kind of like learnings, which can be very important as well, but it usually will cost a bit more. But again, it's similar. There are many that do the same thing. So it's just a matter of preference of what kind of interface you kind of go well with. And then you have Curate, which is more for kind of businesses. And this is where you also have a lot of shoppability. So you have a scheduling app, but you also have that shop now, shop to buy, like to buy. A lot of people put in their bio like a content gallery from their Instagram that's shoppable, as well as their Instagram shopping feed. And Curate is the one that does that. But it's a bit more on the, not from an individual side, it's more for a brand side. But the thing I use personally as an Instagrammer is Preview. I myself would not recommend using scheduling apps, even though I put it there. I think it's very important to plan your Instagram feed or your YouTube calendar, etc. But I would always recommend, once you've planned it and written the caption maybe ahead of time, post it in the moment, because it doesn't take too long. But we have to be very mindful, especially today where the current kind of in the market is so, anything can happen today. There can be a big conversation on a political movement, or there could be a big conversation, for example, like, let's say something happens in the news and you don't want to necessarily be insensitive and post something because it was scheduled, right? So I think having that ability to post in the moment is very important. And that's why I would recommend planning. But of course, some people need to schedule because they're busy or they have multiple accounts or brands to post about. So then scheduling apps can definitely be helpful. The second I would say is listening to your data. So this is all about timing and when to post and where to post. So a lot of businesses, brands, and even individuals don't look enough at their insights and don't look enough at their sort of the learnings from their insights. So if you're, for example, we can look at the one on the left, they're telling you Saturdays is the best time to post, and usually it's between 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. So don't be posting at 9 a.m. because your audience is not really online during that time. Whereas in another situation on the right, it's saying, well, Fridays is your better time to post. But maybe it's more on the 3 p.m., 2 p.m. side, not really 9 p.m. because 9 p.m. here is very low. So it's very important to, when you're posting, you do think about the time zone where most of your followers are. So if you have a predominant country, let's say you're in India, you want to post in the time where most people are awake in India. It's something I have to do because most of my audience is in India as well. So I have to think about that 5.5 hour gap between my time and their time. But I would also say listening to not only your data, but also the industry's data. So if the industry is telling you most people are on their phone Friday evenings and Saturdays, but they're not really shopping on Sundays, then maybe you can plan accordingly. And also what type of content you want to push through when, because you want to post potentially more motivating content on a Monday and more weekend relaxing, have fun content on a Friday, right? So that's also very important to think about when are you posting this content and listening to that data and the results that are coming from it. But initially you might need to do some A/B testing to get enough data that will speak back to you to make those decisions strong. And the last is being topical. And this is something I would say is very strong today. So whether you're a brand or an influencer, again, making sure that you don't have to necessarily always create new content, but we don't want to necessarily go down that route of reposting old content just for the sake of it. So being topical is about, if, for example, today was the marathon and I had a photo that was from my marathon 2-3 years ago, it might be worth reposting it and then the caption saying something like, well done to everyone running on the marathon today, wishing you all the best, I miss this moment, da 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 da. Because there'd be a lot of people searching for it at the moment because it's a trending topic. That will increase your reach and your hopefully then eventually your awareness. But B, it's also free because you have the existing content from before. Same thing could be, for example, let's say there's a new breakthrough study that there's a new endangered animal. You might want to post an image that you've taken during a wildlife safari trip of the animal and then bring awareness to that topic. As you know, most people will be searching for it. So this is just an example, but right now I was thinking about, from my Instagram, right now we've just got announced that gyms are opening, but also hopefully like races or, running events will be opening soon. I thought, maybe it could be nice with that announcement to post an old photo of mine. So this is the sort of thought-provoking that you should be doing, not only as an individual, but as a brand as well, of how to be topical and recycle content that's relevant today. So kind of going back, it's really about when you're publishing, beyond just posting at, frequently once a week or once a day, etc., try to be a bit more mindful about these 3 points to really propel them successfully. And now I think one of the most important conversations is about converting. So this is why content marketing is so paramount, because we're not talking about content creation or content production, we're talking about content marketing. So converting is probably the biggest part of it, because you create content for a brand eventually, or as an individual, to have an effect, an objective. And mostly the objective is often to produce sales or to gain followers or to raise awareness to an issue. So I would say, in terms of a sales, from a conversion point of view, try to have these top 5 checklists for conversion. So are you, on your social media accounts, making the content shoppable? For example, Instagram shop. Do you have a persuasiveness index? And what I mean by this is, like, is the content that you're saying, is it persuasive in its authentic self? For example, if it's a influencer or a UGC content, that has usually a high persuasive index because it's coming from an authentic authority of a real consumer, not necessarily a piece of content taken in the studio. So persuasive index is something I've kind of just made up, but I would say really think about it with each content. If you got a video, is your video clear? Does it have a clear message? And does the video have a clear takeaway for the person who views it at the end? And that's going to really be very important for that conversion metric at the end. Then caption marketing. And this I mean by, most content is always hand in hand with a caption. You can think of a YouTube video where you have a headline and a bio. You can have an Instagram post that has a small caption underneath. So what words are you saying that A, correlates with the image, but B, also is helping to increase that conversion at the end of the day. And then do you have clear call to actions or bite-sized things for your viewer to take out from the content? For example, let's say you're posting a beautiful image of your new product. If you have a checkout code to say, please feel free to use the code July 5 to get 5% off this product when you purchase it, that is going to help eventually make that content more converting because you've got that call to action and that driving. And then the last is advertising and boosting. Unfortunately, today, this is sort of paramount because social media platforms are super, super, super saturated. And they're actually built to eventually even hinder your own audience seeing your content. And I think you can look at Facebook as a prime example of that, where there was actually a study a few years ago that something about organically 5% of your audience see your content. You have to boost your own content just to be seen by the audience that you've gained, let alone new audience. So paying the extra money to get your post in front of more people is sort of important. It doesn't have to be so expensive. You can put £5, $5 behind a post, and it can go quite a long way depending on your targeting. But it's definitely something that we got to do. And I don't think it should be taken as an ashamed approach of like, oh, but it's an ad. It looks like we're begging for likes. It's more of a way to say, look, we've created this beautiful content. We need more people to see it, because organically we're hindered by not only our reach, but also the algorithms of Instagram today. So that's why boosting is so paramount, and I think should be a sort of always on strategy today with many brands and many businesses. And also for influencers, I personally sometimes boost some of my posts on Instagram to get seen by more people, because it kickstarts that kind of visibility. And I think for me also to motivate myself, because the worst is sometimes creating such a beautiful content like a video, spending an hour or two editing or hours and hours editing, and then it doesn't perform. Or especially with YouTube, like you post an amazing video and it gets like 100 views and you're like, oh, okay, should I create another one? Boosting it can give you more people to see it and then hopefully motivate you to create more content initially. So we'll give you a little case study. So Revolve is that kind of example I want to say, because their business is mainly built on social commerce. As we know, they're a very strong powerhouse in the social media arena, but they sell very much from social media. And this has come from their way of using compelling content, but also using content marketing to the max and to be on top of trends very clearly on. So they leverage UGC. So from as I said, a persuasive index on point. They've got really good different variety of content, but everything is shoppable in a sort of seamless way. It's not really, it's in your face shoppable, but it's not really by me. It's a bit more organic than that. And if we look at our 5 checklists, they've got social shopping, yep, but they've also made their Instagram shop completely branded. Like right now, Instagram has allowed businesses to make the Instagram shop feature where it says view shop a lot more brandable with actual like banners. I haven't even done it for Fable and Main, but they've done it and they've been on top of the trend very quickly. They also, as I said, use user-generated content to be very persuasive in their captions and in their content, sorry. But in their captions, they're making very short, clear statements, but they're also making it shoppable. If you actually look at this caption here in the middle, it's clickable to the shop. It's something that's quite new to Instagram right now. And again, they're on top of the trends. They know exactly how to market that content in a very effective but commerciable way. And then they have a very good call to action saying link in bio to shop. So they know exactly what's the next step for the person to do after they've read the caption. So whether they advertise or boost, I don't know, but I'm sure they probably do. But overall, looking at brands that really social commerce first are very good are very good for you to benchmark against from a content marketing point of view. So now we have time for Q&A, and we have a lot of questions, I know, so I want to go through them to make sure we have enough time. But I'll first start with the 10 questions that I have chosen from my Instagram story, and then we'll go through the questions in this live stream. So the first is ways to successfully create user-generated content. So again, I would say there's 2 hats you can put on this. You can kind of create user-generated content for your brand by yourself, right? And have that authentic sort of like iPhone style, flat lay style content that often speaks to many people more so than these professional images you shot. And you can also test that by posting both and seeing which one gets the most engagement. For Fable and Main, we've seen more engagement from the influencer content than our brand content. So that's why for me now I'm focusing a lot more in developing our UGC. But definitely my biggest tip would be working with content creators. It's something that even with my agency, I'm literally focusing a lot on that and delivering that to my clients, because it's something that we really know is working for many businesses, not only from a content point of view, but from a conversion point of view. So from a content marketing point of view, content creators are just like the prime people right now to work with. Are there particular types of posts that do better than others? Definitely. Again, I think it's very subjective to your own. For example, if you're an influencer, if you're a brand, some people would say, oh, for me, when I post selfies, it works so great. When I post people, it works great. When I worked in brands like Dior, it was always the product that did super well, but the people shots didn't do so well. So there's not really a formula or a rule. I would say it really depends on, the A/B testing approach of posting a few options, variety, and seeing organically where do the most, likes and engagement come from, but try to post them in the rough same time. So you have a sort of fair test approach. You don't want to post it on like a time that could have the impact on. So you're really benchmarking against the content itself and not any other external factors. But I would say generally video content does super well. UGC, as I said, kind of influencer content does really well. Anything that's really relatable to the end consumer. And really stem it back from the platform you're on. Because remember, like stuff like Pinterest, Instagram, those accounts are made for social sharing by peer-to-peer. So brands in an honest way never really had a place there. We've just come on there, right? So when brands go there and they post these very professional, boring kind of like magazine style photos and billboard photos, that's not what people want to see. People want to see like real life human interaction photos. Same as TikTok. Like I wouldn't say brands should dare go on TikTok today and be very institutional. They should be very fun, create organic content that's tailored for the platform to be effective. So definitely I think tailoring your posts as well to the platform itself is very important. And that's why I said from my own equipment, I take all my photos on my phone for Instagram. But when it comes to YouTube, where I know people sit down and watch a video for like 20 minutes, having a high quality 1080p high resolution video is probably going to be a lot more effective. So that's why I've invested in my DSLR to film all my YouTube videos from now on. Someone asked, how do you convert content marketing to sales? So I think, again, using my top 5 checklist would be, I think, the easiest way. There's so many other factors, of course, but, I've had to like synthesize all my ideas into something that's very digestible and bite-sized within an hour for all of the audience I have. But I would say definitely the most powerful metric is not only having compelling content, but that real clear call to action. So the checkout codes, anything attached to that content that gives that trigger to convert is so powerful. And, just knowing that you have to have the trigger, but you need to have the content quality being strong enough to ensure that the trigger is met, right? So think of it like, no, I'm not going to say that example. Just think of it like, I was going to say, think of it as a gun, but it's not a good example. But anyway, just definitely really think about content and the checkout code as your trigger to the main thing. How do you create compelling content with no budget? So this is where I say, again, community, working with your content creators on a gifting basis is the predominant best way to do that. And seeing what organic content they create with, be as free as possible with your kind of mood board and guidelines, so they can create as much content that's authentic to them as possible. I would also say leveraging those free apps I said and creating content even on your iPhone, but with the editing apps and your iPhone camera, I say iPhone, Android or whatever, those content can be really impactful for your business. And we've actually posted on I can give you an example from my Instagram, like 98% of, as I said, is all my iPhone images. So it's definitely doable to create great content with no budget. Should I learn Photoshop and Illustrator or outsource it? I would really recommend learning Photoshop and Illustrator, but more Photoshop. It's probably been one of the biggest assets I've had to date. it's just come in handy for so many things. Whether I'm talking to a retailer and they want something really quickly done, I don't have to pay an agency to crop my images. And I've had horror stories where I worked for businesses in the past, brands in the past, where they would allow, well, it was just, I would call it lazy marketing, but the companies I worked for, they would like outsource to crop and put like a white border around an image for Instagram. It was like £900, like it's like $1,000+ to just put a white border. And I would listen, and I would hear this invoice, and I would be like, it wasn't in my team, thank God, I wouldn't have allowed that. But I was like, how can anyone, like, it takes form, like not even form, it takes like 1 minute on on Photoshop to outsource that and pay that ridiculous amount is ridiculous. So definitely you'll save a lot of budget for your own business and a lot of time by knowing Photoshop, but you can also be really creative and do crazy things like GIFs and stuff. So definitely Photoshop. Don't worry, I'll do a course on that later for the people that are keen to learn. Maybe I'll do it like very interactively. So maybe it's like you're watching me do it in real time and not recorded. I think that'll be better, so I can stop and slow down and you guys can really ask me questions in the moment. That will probably be the best way to do it. Does Instagram shopping work? So I'll be really honest. I shouldn't say this, but from the brands I've worked with in the past and the brands I currently have, the conversion from Instagram shopping is near minimal. Like you don't see any. I'm not saying don't do it, but like it's really the checkout codes and the link and the driving to your .com or your retail that really see the conversion. I think we're getting there now. Instagram is really pushing the shopping feature everywhere, that they want to become this sort of like shoppable platform. Then I think it will start changing as the consumer mindset kind of goes to that. But I do feel like I've seen enough metrics. Sometimes I worked with accounts that had millions and like 10 to 20 million of follower accounts on their followers on their account. And we saw maybe like worldwide, like not more than 10 purchases. So like, I'm not kidding, but this is like the number. And you ask many professionals today and they will say Instagram shopping doesn't always convert. So that's something just to bear in mind, that you can do it on the right content, and you should do it anyway. It has an always on strategy. You don't have to make every photo in the grid shoppable, but at least have your shop on Instagram. But please don't be obsessed with the conversion. It might come a bit later, but if you're only seeing one sale every month from Instagram shopping or your social media, it's okay. But think more about those kind of call to action points and those checkout codes and things like that that can just boost that conversion for you. That's where you want to be playing at. Someone then asked, should I make every content I post shoppable? Okay, I think I just answered that by saying, yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't recommend making every post shoppable, but the ones that you feel are relevant. Note, when you make a post shoppable, you can't boost the post. So you got to decide, is it worth having it shoppable to your audience, or do you want to boost it to more people and maybe have your link to your e-commerce site while you boost it? So for me, I would recommend, if you're starting out, don't make it shoppable and boost your post. If you're not starting out, you have a good amount of audience organically and you have like thousands and thousands of people watching your content, then maybe make them shoppable. Is what I would recommend. The best strategy would be make it shoppable for like an hour so your initial audience sees it, then take it off, and then boost it. And that'll be the best way. What's the best way to work with influencers for content rights? So it's very important to sort of be realistic. Don't go crazy with usage rights, because you might not need all the usage rights. The more you ask for the rights, the more expensive it could get. Usually I would always obviously try to recommend you work on a basis of full usage rights, if possible, in exchange for content, in exchange for product delivery or small payment. But if the content creator or influencer is quite on it, which they can be today, a lot of them, they will automatically say, absolutely, but if you want to use the photo, then you got to get the rights. So the first way, which I think is just the easiest, is just regramming with the caption saying credit by. That you don't need rights. That's all within the Instagram platform, so no problem. But let's say you want to take the content and put it on an email, or you want to put the content on a poster, then you've got to start thinking about the usage rights needed. But usually it's a lot cheaper when working with the lower end followers, because they will not be charging too much for their content. So that's why I always recommend working with content creators between 1 to 10,000 followers, because usually the usage rights end up being a lot cheaper. Someone asked, should I focus on influencer content or brand content for social sharing? I think a mixture, and I think it's about this A/B testing again. Like, try some influencer content on like reposting, try some brand content. Of course, you need your brand content to have your brand DNA really clear. But I would say the best medium would be like 60% UGC or 60-70%, in brand influencer content, and then 30 to 40% brand content. So have more on the repost community influencer content, because usually that's what converts better and people want to see. And we had a huge success when I worked and created the Dual Beauty Lovers account, which was just regramming. We were sometimes getting more clicks to shoppable than the global account. And it was just, people were really much more compelled seeing like an influencer content or a flat lay with the lipsticks as opposed to the brand visual. So I definitely would recommend definitely having a good balance, but more on the influencer side. And then someone said, should I promote every post? I think going back to my point, I would definitely recommend, if you can, definitely. You don't need a lot of budget, couple of dollars, couple of pounds, no problem. But definitely try to promote as many posts as possible, because you're just kind of like in a bubble and you're never going to get seen. So all the hard work you put in your content won't really go anywhere. So you've got to amplify that as much as you can. So let's answer some questions we have in the chat. I need to, and then we can go further. So someone goes, do you have to pay for a shop button on your post on Instagram? No, not at all. When you just have to convert your account to a business account, which is free to do. So you go from personal to business, and then you have a shop. The thing you have to do though is to make it shoppable. You got to have you got to basically, with your Facebook, you got to have a catalog, and this is quite easy to set up. You can just Google Facebook, set up Facebook shopping or Instagram shopping catalog. You have to upload your SKUs to Facebook with the right product imagery. And then once you've connected your Facebook account on your Instagram account, you then will be able to see your catalog come up, and it will have the image that you've uploaded with the price and the SKU number. And then it will go the link to your website, your URL. Instagram has launched a beta version of Instagram shopping directly within Instagram, like the likes of Sephora has been one of the first to try this. This is basically a way to say the consumer doesn't end up leaving Instagram, they buy it from Instagram. So they're directly plugged into your backend, your e-commerce, but they never go on your website. It's new. It's not something that's super accessible to everyone right now, or maybe it is now, it's always changing. But basically, I would recommend try to like do that later or in your big business. But for now, you probably won't need to do that. But yeah, no, pretty much Instagram shopping is free for now. What is the source of data insights? So when I was saying data insights, for that key images I showed you with the screenshots, they're from my data insights from different periods on when I go on my settings and I go insights from my Instagram. So on YouTube, you have the same, you have insights. You also have lots of plugins and tools. Like when I said you use Hootsuite or Curate, you will get also reports and insights from the same thing. So definitely you can use your scheduling apps for insights, or you can use the actual platforms itself, which usually has more accurate data because it's direct. That's what I mean by where you can find the data. And not many people often analyze it. They see it, they say, oh, it's interesting, but do they put it in like an Excel, and do they end up analyzing it week on week, month on month? Like, that sort of like, think of it as a business, right? It's data, it's so valuable. And that can make your decisions a bit more sound. Someone goes, how can a content creator approach or land a brand to do freelance work? So some of it, there's a couple of strategies. I would say one strategy would be to reach out to the brand, especially if they're smaller, they're more likely to see it, and DM them and, send your portfolio and request. Usually it might not end up working, and you probably tried that. So if that doesn't work, the second option is sometimes purchasing the product, creating some content that's compelling, going to them. You have two options. One is like, hey, I've created this content as a gift. Here you go. I can create much more content for you. Here's my rate. Let me know, or would be great to chat further. They've already seen something that's relevant to them for their brand. And then they're going to be more likely, if the content is good, to actually follow through on that. Or you can even go, if you really are like a professional content creator, do the same procedure, but then say, put a watermark on it and say, here is my image I've created for you. If you want it, you can have it for $100. So there's a couple of approaches you can do to land a brand in freelance. The other approach is to sort of work with agencies or companies that like have that sort of like relationship with the brand. So I, for example, my agency, I have my community network of nearly 1,000 community members, and my brands don't necessarily talk directly with the community network, but I basically facilitate that relationship. So as an agency, there are companies like Octoly and many other companies that can basically be your middleman. So that's another option as well. If you can't talk directly to the brand, I would definitely recommend finding those agencies that help you get job. Someone goes, any content marketing tips for a global non-profit community? Definitely. I think like leveraging the mission and getting people, influencer content creators who support you to spread mission and create content on your behalf for that reason. I get contacted by many nonprofits, and when the mission is aligned with me, I'm more than happy to support and create content. Whether it's, for example, through wearing a branded T-shirt, which is often a nice way to do it because you have some logo, but it's also some personality behind it. Whether it's reposting a content that was already created, usually but still I don't recommend it, but usually like reaching out to people, explaining what your purpose and your company is about can really help you get that kind of UGC and that kind of organic content. When it comes from other things, I would definitely recommend, if you want to create your own content, I really recommend compelling videos. That goes so well with global nonprofits today. So making sure you can have enough video content. And one other idea would be potentially getting a bunch of ambassadors. It could be real people or it could be influencers, and kind of have like a script, send it to them all to like say and record just on an iPhone. Like they don't have to post it or anything. And then you can make a really cool edit with them all saying different sentences, or, there are a lot of creative content that you can create today that's not going to cost you anything, but just take a bit of time getting it organized. So kind of think out of the box and ways to create compelling content through either video or influencers, definitely. Someone goes, do you think it makes sense for a new brand with 1,000 followers to get a shop option? The brand is beauty and hair care. Yeah, again, as I said, like shop is there. It's probably not going to bring you much sales. So I wouldn't say it's something that should be a matter of timing. I think even if you have 100,000 followers, you probably won't see much benefit from it yet, because it's still something that people don't really shop often. And I also ask all of you watching, do you end up really, like, you swipe up, sure. You sometimes see an ad on Instagram, you might, buy something, but do you end up using the Instagram shop feature often? Not really. You end up normally going on the website because you know the brand, or you wait a bit later. So I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about it, but definitely everything helps. So as I said, the checklist, if you can knock off all the checklists as much as you can, definitely, no matter your following, I would definitely recommend going for a shop option. But you just have to make sure you do the Facebook catalog. And if you're a brand that has a lot of SKUs, it can be, just a bit time consuming, but worth it for sure. Someone then goes, should one learn data analytics in order to understand the metrics and conversion and the reach of the brand? Absolutely. I mean, when you say learn data analytics, I wouldn't say it's necessarily about learning. It's more about studying. Really important to save, document, make different tabs, make Excel your best friend in this way, because it's no good just having screenshots. Like, can you kind of extrapolate the most important data, put it in a document, week on week, change it, adapt it, see the growth, see the relevancy, because it's often when you take a step back when you actually end up seeing the bigger picture. And the problem with the most of the insights today is you screenshot something and it's just showing you the last 7 days, or it just shows you the last 30 days. But you don't necessarily have the full big picture. So I think it's important to document as much as possible. And you might be wondering, yeah, but look, I have 1,000 followers. What's the point? I have 2,000 followers. But the point is like, it should then take you less time. There'll be less data. But definitely it's a good practice to get yourself into, because try to think of it more so as real people. Like, even if it's 1,000 people, that's 1,000 people in a room. Imagine like 1,000 people in one big room. That's a lot of people, right? You would want to make sure that each person, like, you know their names, that the data is there, that the relevancy is there. So really, really, I would recommend is thinking of it like as no matter the size of audience, data is so important today. But yeah, definitely to understand the metrics and conversions and reach is very powerful for any business. Karen asked, could you recommend a few content data analysis apps? Yeah, so I mean, definitely. Again, it depends on budgets because I work with many softwares from Tribe Dynamics to Tracker to etc. But they cost a lot of money. I would really kind of take a step back and just say use the platforms itself and create your own Excel that's relevant to what you want to get out of the data. Because I feel like you might only be interested in knowing who's buying. You might not care about when to post, or you might not care about what audience I have. I just want to know who's converting. Or you might be like, no, I don't care about conversion. It's not for me. I'm a nonprofit. For me, it's about who's reaching, who's listening, what's my impressions each week. So if you have your own kind of Excel, just extrapolating the key data that you need each week from the platforms itself, I think that's key and that's important, because many of these apps and tools, unless you're really embedding and linking your accounts, you often don't have all the full data, and they often require some extra work anyway after. So you have your plugin, and then you have the app, and then you have to also value the data. So I would just say do what I recommend and just kind of use the platform's analytics itself. It's probably the best way. Someone goes, what's your thoughts on Indian influencers? Yeah, I think I think I don't know if the question's about in India or Indian, but I am an Indian influencer, so I love Indian influencers. Absolutely. Next question. How do we see brands ads in between Instagram stories and posts? I think, I mean, if this question is like in terms of how do we see in terms of like how effective they are, definitely like, people are now so used to ads popping up here and there. And I think Instagram algorithm is kind of quite good at making sure that they're seen by the right people, usually. But I would always make sure as a brand, if you want to be seen correctly, wherever you do, is make sure your targeting is very spot on. Don't be anywhere and everywhere just for the sake of it, even though anywhere and everywhere means lower budget. Find that balance, that opportunity cost between putting a bit more budget but having the right targeting, to make sure that your brand's ads is being A, seen correctly, and B, by the right people. Someone asked how to change your audience location organically in case you have relocated and want to cater to a new audience. It's a very good question. I think we now live, especially with the whole COVID, we live in such a global world where, everything is now so global as opposed to local. That comes up, no, from a social media point of view is what I mean. Like right now, I'm speaking to all of you guys all around the world, and it doesn't matter as much as before that I had, only 6% following in the UK. Whereas now I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. I have, most of my following in India, US, and UK. That's great. So I don't think it's necessarily like crucial to migrate your audience due to where you live now. Maybe for, yes, working with brands that want to sponsor you, or if you are a brand that wants to cater to a new audience in your country. I do think there are a couple of strategies I would recommend. Working with influencers and doing some sort of whether it's giveaways or some sort of like how to obtain followers in an effective way or in a conversion way, that are pertinent in that market. So I would work with a big US influencer and maybe do a giveaway for Fable and Maine to get more US followers. That's one option. Second option is obviously doing a lot of ad targeting in those markets specifically, and focusing in that region and not doing things elsewhere. But I would also recommend not necessarily, if you want to do it organically, which is the main question you're asking, without necessarily paying, kind of being very kind of strong in your local area, whether it's from local press, word of mouth, even like out of home things and billboards. Like try to just grow organically as much as possible, but don't worry too much. Like it's okay to have 30-40% following in a different market. It's absolutely okay. Just think of it more as like, don't reduce the percentage, but increase the number in your current audience location. And then someone goes, I have a few more questions, sorry. Is influencer content relevant if I'm selling B2B and not B2C? It's a very good question. Now I'm giving you an example from Sephora. So I work with Sephora. So I'm working B2B with them, business to business. The thing is, Sephora now is starting to see the importance of influencer content. And our first live stream with them was with me and my sister. It was a brand content. Our first social post was a brand content. And now they're saying, actually, can we do an influencer takeover? Can we do an influencer regram from one of your community content because it's so beautiful? So now the businesses, the B2B effect, is now demanding that kind of user-generated content. So definitely, influencer content is definitely relevant for those retailers. A lot of retailers are using influencer content on their platforms. So, then the business accounts, let's say Sephora, is now regramming more and more influencer content than Sephora content or Fable and Main content. So definitely there's a trend and shift in market. And again, it comes to my main statement of the fact that we live in but we are working on platforms that are predominantly not meant for branded content. They're really meant for like UGC influencer content. It's all about sort of that organic content. So we've got to now start playing in these domains with content that are native to these platforms and not necessarily brand content always. Someone goes, what's your view on brands using images from Pinterest, other content pages, and crediting the source? Personally, if it's something so impactful and you can't recreate it, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I just think we should really limit the percentage of the amount the brand is doing it. I see some brands doing like every other post, like it's like a sky, or it's like I don't know, something like a video of an ocean glimmering, and it's like, I kind of feel it's a bit lazy marketing because I feel it's just quite easy to do that. And just, I know they're focusing a lot on the grid and how it kind of looks like an aesthetic feed. But actually, like, as I said before in one of the last workshops, most content is seen from the post itself, not seen from the feed itself. So we got to think about the post on its own. So if you're a brand and you just post a random image of, I don't know, let's say the sky, and you're a skincare brand, people might be like, okay, like I haven't seen the aesthetic moods. I just see the sky. What's the relevancy? So I would say like it's important sometimes when the content is impossible to recreate or it's so special and relevant to the brand. We did that once with this Taj Mahal video in Fable and Main, but really limit it to less than 10% of your content mix for sure. I wouldn't do more than that. Otherwise, create another account and make it like a regram account or something that's sort of like an inspiration account, but it shouldn't be mixed with your brand's identity, I don't think. And I think that's pretty much, I'm just thinking of the time. Yeah, okay, so that's pretty much the time we have today. So just to kind of finish up, it's definitely a very, content marketing is a very kind of diverse topic. So these are just some tips that I'm giving you from my personal experience. By no means is it exhaustive enough. There's so many more dimensions to content marketing. So I do invite you to kind of do some more research on different apps, different ways to drive content, and how to use shoppable and conversions to the best of the ability of your brand. But hopefully I've given some tips, and I'll definitely work on arranging sometime in the future a Photoshop interactive workshop for you guys. So stay tuned in your emails for that. It will be after the course finishes, but I think that'll be something that will be very useful. But next week we'll be talking about email marketing. We're going to be going through MailChimp, how to create templates, how to grow your email database, and how to, again, create the best conversions of your emails. So can't wait till then, and hope you have an amazing weekend, and see you next Friday as always. Lots of love, guys. Thank you so much, and see you soon.